Remember watching Breaking Bad? Remember that feeling when Walter does something ruthless and somewhere deep inside you think, yeah, let's go. And then Skyler shows up and everything tightens. Oh, here we go again. Just let him work. Why does she have to make everything so complicated? I want to talk about that feeling because it says more about you than it does about her. Let's start with a simple fact. Skyler White did nothing wrong. I mean that literally. Let's just go through it. Her husband starts coming home strange one day. Lying, disappearing, changing. She can feel something is off. She starts asking questions. What is a normal wife supposed to do? Exactly what she did. Then she finds out the truth. And she doesn't immediately leave, doesn't immediately call the police. She tries to understand, tries to protect her kids, tries to hold whatever is left of her family together. That's not a villain. That's a person stuck in an impossible situation she never chose. But millions of people hated her. Why? Here's where it gets interesting. There was actual research done. Analysts looked at forums, comment sections, fan communities during Breaking Bad's run. Skyler White was one of the most hated characters on television. Not Gus Fring, who murdered people without blinking. Not Todd, who shot a child and felt nothing. Not Jack and his gang of neo-Nazis. Skyler, a woman who found out her husband was cooking meth and was upset about it. Just sit with that for a second. Anna Gunn, the actress who played Skyler, wrote a piece in the New York Times in 2013. She talked about receiving death threats, people telling her on the street that she deserved to die, fan pages called "I Hate Skyler White." She wrote one line that I haven't been able to shake. I began to realize that many people were unable to separate me from the character. But then she said something else. She said, maybe people hate Skyler because she gets in the way of enjoying Walter. And that's when everything clicks. Let's talk about what makes Breaking Bad a masterpiece. The show pulls you onto Walter's side from the very beginning. You see his humiliation, students laughing at him, colleagues dismissing him, washing cars at a second job, cancer, a family drowning in debt. You feel for him. Then he starts cooking meth, and you think, well, he had no choice. Then he kills someone, and you think, it was self-defense. Then he does something worse, and you think, they pushed him into it. This is called moral erosion. Vince Gilligan, the creator of the show, said one of his main goals was to take the audience and quietly walk them from point A to point B without them noticing. Point A, you feel sorry for a chemistry teacher. Point B, you're rooting for a drug lord and a murderer. And most viewers never even felt it happen. Enjoying this? Subscribe right now. It means a lot. Thanks. Skyler felt it. She wasn't watching Walter from a safe distance through a screen. She was living with him. She watched him change, watched the lies become routine, watched the control become obsession, watched "I'm doing this for the family" turn into empty noise. And every time she pushed back, viewers got angry. Not because she was wrong, because she was breaking the spell. She was a mirror, and in that mirror, Walter didn't look like a cool anti-hero. He looked like an abuser. Nobody wants to see that mirror when they're watching TV to feel good. Here's a specific moment most people remember wrong. The scene where Skyler walks into the pool. Walter is trying to talk to her. She silently walks into the water fully clothed. Most viewers, God, she's so dramatic. What is wrong with this woman? Now let's look at the context. By this point, she knows her husband is a drug dealer. She knows he's killed people. She knows he's laundering money through her car wash. She knows that if she says a word, her children are in danger. She knows there's no way out. She's not being dramatic. She's a person who just understood she's trapped, and the only thing she can do is walk into that pool and refuse to speak to the man who destroyed her life. That's not a meltdown. That's quiet desperation. Now let's talk about what was happening off-screen. Because the hatred towards Skyler wasn't just a reaction to a character, it was a symptom of something bigger. Research showed something interesting. Men and women watched Breaking Bad differently. Many men identified with Walter, saw in him someone who finally took what he deserved. Many women saw themselves in Skyler, a woman being told, don't ask questions, don't get in the way, you're making everything complicated. And the reaction to Skyler reflected something real, the way society actually treats women who don't stay quiet. When a woman objects, she's called difficult. When a woman asks questions, she's called suspicious. When a woman doesn't support her husband through his chaos, she's called a bad wife. Skyler did all of these things, and she was called all of these things. There's one more thing almost nobody talks about. Skyler eventually became complicit. She laundered money, she lied to the police, she covered for Walter. And here's the thing, the moment she turned bad is exactly when viewers started warming up to her. Think about that. When she was honest and standing against Walter, they hated her. When she started helping a criminal, suddenly she was more interesting. That's not a coincidence. That tells you exactly what role viewers wanted the woman in this story to play. Not a moral compass, support for the main character. There's a scene in the finale that explains everything. Walter comes to see Skyler one last time. He could have said, "You were right." He could have said, "I'm sorry." He could have said, "I destroyed everything that mattered." Instead, he says, "I did it for me. I liked it." That's a confession, but not to Skyler. It's a confession to the audience. Because the audience was doing it for themselves, too. They enjoyed rooting for Walter. They enjoyed the fantasy of a man who finally stopped playing by the rules. And Skyler had been standing in the way of that fantasy the whole time. So who was Skyler White, really? Not an obstacle, not a nag, not a bad wife. She was the only sane person in the show. And that's exactly why she was unbearable to watch. Because sanity is boring when you want a fantasy. Because being right is annoying when you're rooting for the wrong person. Because mirrors are uncomfortable when you don't like what you see. Breaking Bad is a masterpiece not because it showed how a good man became bad, but because it showed how the audience became complicit. You rooted for Walter. You got annoyed at Skyler. You made the whole journey with him. And at the end, when he says, "I liked it," he's saying it to you too. You liked it too. And the most uncomfortable question Breaking Bad leaves you with is not, how did Walter become Heisenberg? It's this: why did it take you so long to stop being on his side?